Hey, thanks for joining me for another AK Cobra Mark III chassis build video. Well, I'm glad to have got the headers and the exhaust out of the way in the last video. They were really quite the toughest parts, especially with that new chassis design around the engine and making it a little less accessible. But anyway, that's all done, and exhausts are looking good. And now we're going to just finish up some things that we left over, such as brake servo hose and the heater hoses that have to go underneath the chassis, and then we'll also get around to fit in the boot and bonnet and associated locks, so I can finish up making some holes in the body before it goes off to paint. Right, so the brake servo hose has to go from this outlet here on the back of the engine, and I generally have it curving round. I have it resting on top of the heater box here. There's a nice gap, and then it will curve round. That's the part that I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty with, because I always forget, when I'm mounting this pressure unit. However, I think there's space just behind. We can get it curving round, and then I'm either going to fix it with a P-clip on the side here, which is usual, and then it finally ends up on the inlet there for the brake servo, remembering to put in the one-way valve as well. So let's just check the route here. Right, so I'm getting my route planned here. So first of all, to note, this is devilishly hard to push on, so I'm going to be soaking this in a cup of boiling water for a little while, and plenty of WD-40 in the hope that I can wedge this on. I've been pushing so hard in the past that I thought I might actually snap this. Interesting to note that some builders will actually take this off just here and then put in a little brass L connection, so the hose goes directly out this way. So that might be worth thinking about. However, I'm preferring to keep it all pretty standard, and I've always just had the hose just curving around here and exiting. So this is my planned route. So I'll be coming out here. I will have to put a hole in just here just to support a P-clip, because I think that IVA will need to see that all supported, and then hopefully it'll just make a little jump then straight into the spout, which you can't really see in the dark. So it's just going to sort of curve over this cap. All a little bit busy. I could bring it in. I could actually bring it in here and come over the top, no problem at all, and use a lot more hose and come over the top. But again, it's all flapping around in there. Maybe I put a P-clip in there, and I can just drill up through the top of the footwell. But I'm a bit loath to do that, and I'll probably go this route here. Right, all buttoned up there, all pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that. I ended up taking the opportunity to do a double P-clip there, because I wasn't happy with the leg of the wiring loom flapping around. So I've done a double P-clip on one 5mm bolt. A little tricky to get in there, and then put a bolt on the underside, so that's all fine. Got my one-way valve, then a nice drop into the brake servo, all pretty good. Saves coming around to this corner, sharp corner, etc. And if I need to do another P-clip, I can always do one, or I'll do one off the mounting point of the pressure regulator. Just drop one hanging down, and that'll capture the pipe. So that's a good option as well if needed. All right, onto the heater pipes now. So here we are under the car. So what I've got is the two pipes coming down from the heater that I'd like to keep away from the bell housing there. And they need to come into a kind of orientation like this. And they're going to meet up with the pipes that I've got coming down from near the thermostat here. So I've already mounted one bracket. There's a good position there. So that's a nice angled bracket, nice rounded edges. So that's all good. They're not moving, they're keeping in this orientation so that none of the pipes are hitting anything, and that's all nice and solid. And then they're going to come down and need to go in this kind of orientation, and then we're going to meet halfway. I could have got these pipes a lot further. As you can see, that pipe is quite long and does poke up, but I didn't really want the join up in the engine bay, so I decided to do the full length of pipes down and then we'll have the join down here. So I've made up a couple of brackets, and what I'm thinking is I'm going to put one bracket here. Excuse the camera work. I'll have one bracket here, so I'll buzz that in with a couple of 5mm, and I need to drill another hole, and then these can, I've drilled one hole here, and that can simply have a zip tie around it holding the pipes in, and then I'm going to have one in this orientation a bit further up, like that, and same deal, so that will hold those pipes in there. So let me give you a rundown of the finished article here. So 16mm inner dimension pipes. I've got the 270-degree angles on the top here, go into some aluminium 90-degree angles, which allow it to come down here. Now I cut one of them so that they can, let's have a look here. I cut that furthest one just a little bit shorter so that the two pipes can line up next to each other, and then as they come over all the brake lines and everything, and then I put in a bracket there, just attached it to the engine. I think that's an M8, lots of little holes around the engine that you can use. So that's a nice bracket, nice and rounded off, and then they continue on down there. So I've got a bracket upturned that way, and then I've got a bracket facing the other way as it goes past the starter motor, and then it disappears on up to the heater box. So yeah, various brackets that you might have to use to so things don't rub and touch. You can see that on the back of this bracket here, I put a little bit of end trim on there, just to satisfy, well, myself really, and IVA man, that pipes aren't going to rub up against a sharp edge, etc. And I'm going to just stick one on this edge there as well, although it's not such a turn on the edge. So that is heater pipes all done. All right, time to fit some gas ram brackets for the boot here. So first of all, we need to mark about 19 inches apparently from the hinge. It's a bit ambiguous. I don't know if I'm meant to go from the middle of the boot or from the hinge. I'm going from the hinge, and we're going to go 19, and then there's the mark for 19. And then what we're going to do is just hold this here. Now this would arrive flat, so you need to bend it to the shape of the underside of the boot so that you get maximum amount of purchase of faces touching each other. So I'm pretty happy with that. So the hole's on 19, and then I've bent this so that I'm ready to go with the P38, I think, or is it P40, the most fibrous one, and I'm just going to smother that on there and stick it on. Alright then, so top tip, use some of your offcuts of fiberglass body to mix on, and I'm just going to chuck some of this on and see where we're at. And I'm just basically just chucking it on here, and then we'll do another lot sort of smoothed over the other side, but this is just the initial fix in, if you like. Okay, seems pretty good. A touch more there. Right, so okay. So that's roughly in place. I'm just going to smooth that slightly and then continue holding it. I'll get some more on there while I can. Alright, let's have a look at what that looks like. And you can see there, hopefully, what it looks like, and we'll just let that set, and then we'll go over it again with a little bit more, making it a touch neater and just covering it all up. So these front supports are a little bit trickier. What I do here is basically mark them up on a bit of masking tape where I want the holes. So I just held it in place, basically, just here. The instructions call for it to be 1 inch in front of the main bar here that goes across and supports the header tank and everything. So I've got it there about 1 inch. So that's all fine. Got enough stud hanging out. Previously on another build, I've had to put a little spacer in front to bring that stud out slightly, but this is all fine. So I've marked up my 2 holes. Obviously it's going to be quite difficult to drill them. So what I do, I basically peel off that tape, and you can see the tape goes from the bottom of the arch there. So I'll peel off that tape and then reapply it in kind of the same place on the other side in the wheel arch, hopefully. So you can see the bottom of the tape here. I'm going to leave that there so I know where it is, and just tear it off, and stick the tape on this side, and I'll know where to drill the holes. So hopefully there's enough light for you here. So I've obviously got the sticky side that was previously stuck there, and I'm now going to hold this up here and mark my holes. I'm going to have to hold this up to the light and remark my holes, the pencil marks. But then when I hold this here in that position, then hopefully my holes will be in pretty much the right place. Obviously you can do all this with rulers and stuff instead, you know, just measure 1 inch away from this front support and go up. But I think hopefully this will be a little bit more accurate to make sure my support is up against the rain gully. And the reason for that is you then drill through the gully and secure, go through the gully and this plate and secure that with a bolt, as well as the 2 bolts that are holding it in from the side. Anyway, let's see what that looks like. Well, there we go. Pleased to say that that all worked fine, that measurement, and you can see the bracket on here. Now, I can't quite remember if the fat end of the ram goes at the top or at the bottom. It would be better at the top, because then all the lubricant in there will work, and this won't be sort of going up and down if it's the other way up and there was no lubricant until the first couple of movements. It's going to be operating a bit dry, and so I think I prefer to do it this way, but we have to just check that everything fits. Now, there is not quite enough room down here. By the time I've got a nut on there, and preferably a washer on both sides, and then you've got the rubber that goes around the rain channel, that could be rubbing up against the rubber every time it's opened. It is a touch close. So I think I'm actually just going to undo this and put a couple of M6, M8 washers behind the bracket, just to push the whole lot out a couple of mil, and then that'll give me a bit more room to satisfactorily get a nut nylock on there. So yeah, I can't quite remember if which way round this goes. So we have to think that this is hanging from the boot and maybe going in there, or maybe it's coming in from the other side. And we just have to make sure there's enough space. The other factor is that if that was in there, this can't quite go flat, but maybe it doesn't need to, because obviously the boot's at an angle, everything's at an angle, so maybe, you know, that final position will be fine. Otherwise it's going to hit that, and I think that's why perhaps the thick end goes up the other end. Anyway, we'll check it out. Obviously when this closes, this bracket ends up being approximately there, so it misses the alternator, or at least the large lump misses the alternator, so we're all good there. Anyway, I'll do the other side. All right, just to finish this off, so I like to put a countersunk bolt in there, so hopefully the paint shop will just be able to blast over there and make it almost invisible. Too much slack in there to take up with a load of and waste a load of washers, so I just put a nut in there, nut on the end, bit of wiggle room, bit of slack for the ram, and a bit of adjustment available there as well. So pretty happy with that. Good job. Right, cracking on with these bonnet rams. So we've got the bonnet on, all looking good. So I was just reviewing a couple of videos in the AK members area, because as you know, the instructions tell you to do a measurement an inch back from the crossbar here. The videos tell you to do 7 inches from here and take a line across, and that's where you mount your little brackets. However, right at the end of the video, John does make a point of saying, I think 6 or 6.5 inches from the front for an LS engine. And that's so by the time you've measured from the bracket where it protrudes 10.5 inches, it should miss the alternator. So as you know, I'd already taken that into account. I'm pretty happy with my position in here. It's not quite 6.5, it's more like just under 6. Pretty happy with that. Measured 10.5 inches. This is where the bracket will end up going, and we will miss the alternator when everything's shut. So that's all good. We're talking about the knobbly bit, of course. So we're going to mount these brackets on the underside. So I've just transferred my 10.5 inch mark, and I'm going to line it up all there, drill some holes. I'm actually going to use riv nuts because I think riv nuts, they allow the painter to take the brackets off, do a complete paint job, and then refit the brackets, and I think it's a nicer finish. But whether you do that or use rivets or whatever else, then that's up to you. Now I'm just going to have to check which brackets fit. It looks like it's these ones that have been thinned out. Now I thought these thinned out ones were for the boot, because for the boot I thin them out so that you can get closer to the bend, and this is I'm talking about the boot now, and you can get the brackets in a better position. Anyway, obviously these are for the front because this is quite wide, and they've made these to fit, I guess. And then these brackets will be for the boot, and I may have to just thin them out on the inside with a grinding wheel. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to the boot. Let's fit these other brackets first. Okay, so I'm not quite happy with the way that these brackets are fitting on the bonnet, so I've just screwed them in upside down on a block of wood so we don't damage anything. And I'm just thinning out the walls just a little bit more, just to see if they can just slide on a little bit more flush. At the moment, you could wedge them on. They're going to dig into the paint, and it will end up being flat against the surface, but I don't really like that idea. I know they need to be fairly tight. That's why the walls are there, to stop any sort of rocking motion, but I think they just need to go on a little bit more cleanly, so we'll see how that fits. All right, so there's the difference. So the original bracket could be squished on this far, and if I really pressed, then it will probably go flush, but it's going to take some pressing. So now my bracket is just gently gripping here, and I think that's going to be much better for the paint and everything, just taking out that internal wall a little bit. All right, let's get these brackets fitted once and for all. So obviously AK will tell you to rivet these brackets into the boot and bonnet. So I'm not doing that. I like to have them removable, get the paint underneath, maybe a better job, I don't know. So what we're doing first of all, I need to drill these out to 6mm, because my riv nuts are 6mm. So do that nice and easy with the aluminium. It's not going to catch really or start spinning around, which is good. I don't want to have to clamp that to drill it, because this is very soft and it all just makes marks. Marked all these up, by the way, for my side, top and bottom, so I know what's going where. And then I'm just going to drill this out because I am fitting these countersunk, basically bolts there that will go into my riv nuts. So I've just got a little grinder attachment. Need to concentrate because otherwise it'll catch and it'll end up riding around and marking up your So I'm just going to carry on doing this for a little bit until I've got a nice countersunk hole. I don't think I can ever get it quite flush with my attachments, but we'll do a pretty good job. Alright, so there we are, we're all set there, and now we can do the other side, and then we're going to hook up the gas rams. Alright, so apparently the way to fit these gas rams is, first of all, you need to let out a little bit of air until you can just push this in, because at the moment it's absolutely solid pressure. So I'm just going to press down on the floor. I can't push that in at all, so I'm just going to let out a bit of gas. Of course, don't let out too much, you can't put it back in. Right, see if I can kind of break that seal now. Okay. Alright, so I can now push that in. So the idea is you're now meant to hook this up, and you're meant to continue letting out a bit of gas until the bonnet can barely hold itself up with one ram. So let's see how that goes. Right, so this is job here, take the bracket out. Right. Okay, so I also need to get a nut on there ASAP, so bear with. Okay, that's a bit safer. So the idea is we're meant to see if this, alright, that is far too strong. Now, I don't want to put too much pressure on because I don't want to start cracking anything or doing any damage anywhere. So let's take out a bit more. Wrong way. Alright, so I can push that down now, but it can still hold itself up with one. The idea is to get them so they can barely hold it up with one, so that the load is then spread along with two, and two will be able to hold it up and not put too much pressure on when you're trying to close it. Alright, so that, to me, is just pushing up gently. I'm not seeing any deformation when I'm pressing it down, really. I'm loath to take more out, although I might just take one little squirt out. And yeah, so that's only just pushing it back up, and I doubt it would in this position. Okay, so I reckon I reckon that's all good. So I'll repeat on the other side. So we've obviously got to undo this so we can do it on the other side. So I'll do all that and I'll show you the finished result. Let's see how that goes now. So, okay, it's taken a fair bit of pressure to push down, and I think that's too much. I think I was a little bit, I think really in that upright position, it shouldn't have been able to hold itself up with one. I think I need to let it just a touch more out. Basically, yeah, it's a bit too much pressure, I think. And just to note that you have to do this before paint. They should insist on it because it changes the whole dynamic of the bonnet. You can see there's a bit of a bulge here. Previously, when I was just resting this on here, this was flush. It's kind of trying to push it all up this way, and that's why certainly 355 paint insist on you fitting these gas rams and having all the locks in place, because until then you can't accurately do the stripes if you're doing stripes, etc, etc. So we are just going to let just a touch more out, just so, oh yeah, it really wants to lift off there. So literally half a second on each one, and then we're all done. All right, cracking on. So I want to fit the bonnet next, so I can get the locks out of the way and some other paraphernalia, and also do the boot so we can get the boot light on, etc. But whilst I'm here and emptying the box of bits, I'm going to just put the mirrors on quickly. So that's an 8mm hole. The only thing you need to be wary of, I guess, is mostly on the driver's side, that when you go through, now I normally like to make the hole line up with the escutcheon holes, but when you go through, you'll find that it's quite difficult to do the nut up. Sorry, it's a bit dark in here. Because it will come down to here, and it's a hell of a job to get the nut on the end of the mirror there, because the chassis is in the way. I didn't want to fight with that and have extra holes, so I'm just bringing it forward just 10mm, and I'll be all clear to do that up nice and easily. And these mirrors are from S&J Motors. I think you can get them from other places, Holden, maybe Europa if that's back online. So I'm going to go for about there. I kind of want it on a bit of the flat and not down here. So we're just going to go for about there, and I think that'll look pretty nice. Obviously these are not IVA acceptable, so we'll be putting on probably some windscreen mounted IVA mirrors when the time comes. Also, wherever you decide to mount your mirrors, make sure they're not going to impact any wind wings if you decide to fit them, although you have a certain amount of flexibility to be able to put these into different positions. Video onto the bonnet locks now. So this is all done a little bit aesthetically, because there's a lot of curved lines here. It's quite hard to measure, but the end point is AK say to measure from the center line out about 10 inches, and then it's got to go through this double walled section here, all right, which is about 6 centimeters down. So that's what I've done. I've kind of taken a center line as best I can. I've put a few lines up here, measure where you can really. I took one across the bonnet, and then I took one across here. You can see that the bonnet scoop isn't quite symmetrical. This line finishes up a bit higher than this line, so it's all just kind of what looks right. Of course, I got a center line kind of from the dash previously, so I've taken that as well. And you just kind of have to do your best, and then hopefully the paint shop, if you're having stripes, will do their stripes sympathetically with what you fitted. All right, so there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and drill a hole here. Hopefully that's about 10 inches out, and same on the other side. And we're going to do it about 8mm in the end, and that will satisfy the square rod on the underside. And then we'll open up this top hole a bit more sympathetically with what the fitting requires. Let's see if I can take you along with this hole drilling. So I'm going to start off with kind kind of 6mm. I'm going to do my washer jets as well. Washer jets are meant to be about 7 inches from the center line, so I'll mark that up accurately. And then I'm going to start off with the locks hole. Okay, so I'm just going to open up that washer jet hole slightly. So once you've got a hole started, it's best to start in reverse, because otherwise it's going to catch all the bodywork and the fiberglass and split it open. Anyway, so remember to do your washer het, well, all the holes just a little bit larger for the to take into account the paint. So that's not too bad. I might just eke that out with a small file, and I like just to round the edges as well, so the paint is just flows in there. And I'll go like that. Okay, and then once that's done, we need to grab the gasket and use that as a template, and then we'll be opening that up really carefully, probably with more of a hole saw type attachment, but only this top half. The bottom section only needs to fit the square rod through, and that's about 9-10 mil, so that should be fine. So we'll just line this up best we can. Okay. Excuse all the lousy camera work there. There's not a flat surface in the joint and all the vibrations and everything, but you get the idea. So I just opened that up really sympathetically. You need to be quite careful not to go too far, because you need to leave space for your screw holes, which may just slightly go into those bits that you you just cut out, but we're going to just see where the heck this is, if my pen goes all the way through, and we'll see how good we were. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to just do, it's just there, and just there. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is, because these little lugs are really close to your holes, and the lugs are needed to stop the whole thing twisting, right? So you need to be quite careful with that. But anyway, there's enough meat on there. We're just going to open up kind of 4mm holes or so for self-tapping screws, and they'll get enough purchase, no problem at all, to allow all that movement and for the locks to work. And then we'll just check out the underside just to see where that square rod is coming through, just to see if it's up against an edge or not, and we'll just open that up just very gently, make it all nice and curved, and make a nice finish. All right, so probably massively overthinking. Anyway, I drill kind of 3mm holes, and then I just take the top layer off, because when you first go in with a self-tapping, it could crack the top layer, and you don't want that happening to your paint, even though it will most likely be quite hidden. So so we're all good there. So if I could find a gasket and do the final fit up here. Let's have a look. So we're all sitting there nicely, which is all good. And I did just open up the exit hole about to 11mm, because of course you've got to take into account the paint and all the rest of the good stuff. And I also did just start these screws going, so that when it does come back from paint, so they've got a bit of a thread to follow. And we'll just see how that goes. There we go. I'd like to try and finish them in the same direction. Is that a bit of OCD? I don't know. All right, so we're all good there. Solid as a rock. Right, does feel like it might be a bit tight. Let's just see how that's hitting. Yeah, okay, so it is just hitting slightly, I think. So I'm just going to open that up to 12mm and then call it a day. Okay, then after that, we need to be fitting the little kind of paddles just underneath. So these will fit to the underside onto the square rod, and of course they turn around and they slide underneath and cause it to lock. Now the addition that you need here then is a couple of brackets, which I've fashioned already, and I need to fit them before then spraying them with a bit of hammerite, so they're nice and black, and you only see the tip. But you can see here we need to fit this then in the right place, so that those little paddles can slide underneath. They will slide underneath and lock it, because I think they come out. I think the paddles will be about here, and they'll be able to slide out the way and slide underneath. Just to clarify that, of course we don't cut that rod off yet. We're going to fit, now that we know where this rod is and where all the line is and everything else, I'm going to just mark this up, and then I'm going to be able to fit those brackets in the correct place. And then we will open and close with the with that kind of paddle foot bit at different lengths, until we get a nice sort of fit that just gently pulls the bonnet shut against those brackets. And at that point I'll be able to cut off the excess square rod. A little bit of a change of direction here onto the battery tray now. So AK have changed the design of the battery tray. It used to fit widthways, if you like. Used to be a bit of a pain to be able to get the battery out. You had to kind of lift it up over this bolt here, which of course would have an earth and also the battery negative go into it, so it was all a bit busy and a bit of hassle here to take it right out. So I quite agree with the way they've changed it. However, the battery tray still sits up on this fixing here, which is a bit of a pain, a bit unsightly. It makes it wobbly, means you have to pack it out perhaps, and that means the weight of the battery wouldn't be spread evenly. So I didn't necessarily like that, and also it's unnecessarily long. So when you put the battery in, there's a space, whether you have the space at the back or the front. But anyway, the fact is it sits up on this, and that's not good. So what I've done, because it is a little bit long, I've cut the corner off the edge, given it a bit of hammerite, and now you can push it further so that it's not sat on this lump here, and obviously you can still undo the front of the battery tray here and take this off, and it's all fine. So that's all great. Now you might see that line of sight there. You might think that this is all in the way and I might need to move it, but I don't, because of course this is removable. So everything still fits in there just fine, which I'm pleased about. So that will obviously just slide in just fine, and the gear behind here, stuck behind here. So, stopping it. There we go. So that can all slide all the way back if necessary. It's not on the lump. I can still install the bracket here. And once this is in, I can refit my removable button and it's all fine. Here we are at the less exciting end of the car, but still lots to do. So first things first, fit the boot light. Nothing you can do about that, no measuring involved. It goes in the space that's allocated, so job done. And from there you should be able to take some sort of center line, which I plan to use for my fog and reverse lights. But also we continued with the gas rams, so you can see my pre-fitted bracket there that we put in with P38, and then I've put in the AK brackets at the top and let out a bit of gas until it can barely hold itself on each side. Job done. Now to get the distance required, about 10 inches, 10.5 inches, this bracket has to go closer to the bend, which is a bit of a bind. So what I did, I just took the edge off there, just took the corner off there and just thinned down the inside edge in that sort of last half, just so I could get it a bit closer. And you can see that I've done that on the other side as well, so all pretty neat and tidy. So yeah. Alright, so the last job this video is to fit the boot lock. Again, we can crack on with that because we know the kind of centre line which comes from the light. And then once we've got all the boot lock and the handle installed, then we can make some measurements for Frenching in the fog light and reverse light, but that'll be in the next video. So in this video, we're just going to install this. Now I have got a much more sort of detailed video, season 3 episode 8, and I do explain this quite well. So I'm going to go for an even smaller hole this time and see if I can kind of feed it in. I'm going to do the riv nut thing again, which worked really well last time. So I'm going to just squeeze some riv nuts into this attachment, and then we're going to just cut out this square hole. Might need to make a little bit of a bulge because the riv nuts are slightly wider, and try and get it in there. It's going to end up in about this position. Let's have a look here, because there is you know, a little bit of a lip here on the inside, so it'll just be drawn into about that position, I think. And then I can make a hole all the way through and put the handle in and see how that's all looking. So yeah, I'll get cracking with that right now.
Make 'em believe you know where you're going. so we can feel alive. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. I'm gonna be there, yeah, be by your side. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. Nothing can compare to this feeling, alright. When you're lying there old and gray, you'll think of the days you savor the moment. You'll remember the leaps of faith, the love that you gave, only thing that's worth knowing. I used to be just like you, trying to meet the expectations of this life. But I wrote my own set of rules, you should write your own too, so we can feel alive. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. I'm gonna be there, yeah, be by your side. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. Nothing can compare to this feeling, alright. Live for yourself tonight, time to let in the light. It's good for your heart, oh yeah. And if we start a fight, I'll be right by your side, no matter what. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. I'm gonna be there, yeah, be by your side. Let's get lost in the night, lost in the night. Nothing can compare to this feeling, alright.
All right then, so just to let you know what's going on here. So pretty successful hole and everything. Pretty pleased with how small this is and how all that works. These aren't going to be the final M6 bolts. I'm going to use some cap head bolts, which I think, even though they stick out a little bit more, are a bit nicer. Obviously washer and everything, just to hide the slightly larger hole, although that is needed, because I was about 2-3 mil out. Basically the hole this side is too far this way, and I just need to eke out about 2 or 3 mil that way. So obviously I'm going to have to just take out this bolt and just make it slightly oval, the hole slightly oval, about 2 or 3 mil, just so the lock can just slide this way a little bit. And the reason for that is I did actually get the exit correctly. So this hole is in line with my center line, but it instead of coming out straight, it just goes off at a slight angle. So there you go. Probably because I'm trying to film this and for you guys, and it's all a bit awkward. So I was a bit cack-handed there, instead of having the bonnet turned around so I could drill accurately in. Anyway, not to worry, it literally is about 2 or 3 mil, and by the time I put some washers on there, you're not going to see the slightly oval hole, and we'll all be in good shape. So there we go, easily done. Might just open this hole up a little bit more just for a little bit more freedom, but we are cooking on gas there, and now everything is in line, so that's great. So I just have to tease that out just slightly. Might just neaten that up, make it a nice round hole. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit larger than it needs to be, but really pleased with that. So I'll get some decent bolts, little washers, to protect the paint once it's all done, and that's great. So all we need to do now is, again, like the front locks, we just need to use this template here and mark it out and just open up that hole slightly, So yeah, there you go. It has to be opened up anyway to be able to fit this bit in, and a couple of little pins there, and then obviously the screws. Here we go. The lock is all in place, although I still need to screw it in, but we're all good there. Let's have a look. Obviously, the locked position needs to be horizontal, and then we can just turn it in like that. Really pleased with that. That's the smallest hole I've done so far. Nice and neat. Just swap out those couple of bolts for something neater, and we're all done. Alright, so we got quite a lot done in this video. Lots of finicky jobs out of the way. I'm quite pleased with how all of that went. Join me again for windscreen wiper fitting and Frenching in the rear lights, and that's the reverse light and the fog light. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me along and gives me impetus to do more of these videos. And remember, the car is still for sale, so if you are interested or know anyone, please pass on my details. See you again.